I never thought the happiest day of my life would also be the day I'd watch my ex-boyfriend fall apart in the back row of my wedding. But there he was, Gunwoo, the man who once told me I'd never find anyone better, sitting alone while I stood at the altar with Yoonho, the one person he'd always been terrified of losing me to. Funny how life works, isn't it? The universe has a twisted sense of humor, and karma? Well, karma doesn't forget. This is my story, a story of heartbreak, healing, and the sweetest revenge that comes from simply living well. The morning started like any other Tuesday. I woke up at 4 in the morning because that's what bakers do. We sacrifice sleep so other people can enjoy fresh bread with their coffee. My alarm buzzed in the darkness of our bedroom, and I reached over to turn it off, careful not to wake Gunwoo. He was sleeping peacefully beside me, his face relaxed and handsome in the dim light filtering through our curtains. I smiled at him even though he couldn't see it. After 5 years together, I still felt lucky every morning when I woke up next to him. I slipped out of bed quietly, pulled on my work clothes, and headed to the kitchen to make coffee. Our apartment wasn't fancy, just a simple 2-bedroom place above my cake shop, but it was ours. Every corner held memories. The couch where we watched movies every Friday night, the kitchen table where Gunwoo would sit with his laptop while I tested new recipes, the small balcony where we'd drink tea and talk about our future. That future felt so real to me, so solid. I thought we'd grow old together in this little space above my shop, surrounded by the smell of vanilla and sugar. I was so wrong. Before leaving for work, I wrote Gunwoo a note like I always did. "Good morning, love. There's fresh coffee in the pot and your favorite blueberry muffins on the counter. Have a great day at work. I love you more than yesterday, but less than tomorrow. Your Unwoo." I drew a little heart at the bottom and stuck it on our couple magnet, the one we bought on our trip to the beach 2 summers ago. Then I went downstairs to my shop, Sweet Moments Bakery, and started my day. I mixed flour and sugar, kneaded dough until my arms ached, and piped frosting onto cupcakes with the same care I put into everything I made. Baking wasn't just my job, it was my way of spreading happiness. Every cake that left my shop carried a piece of my heart. My regular customers started arriving around 7. Mrs. Park came in for her daily croissant and Americano. Mr. Kim picked up a chocolate cake for his daughter's birthday. And then, at exactly 7:30 like clockwork, Yoonho walked through my door.
Yoonho had been coming to my shop every week for almost 2 years. He always ordered the same thing, a whole strawberry cake, and he always had the kindest smile. He was different from most of my customers, quiet but attentive, well-dressed but not showy. He'd ask about my day and actually listen to my answers. Sometimes I'd catch him watching me while I boxed up his cake, but whenever our eyes met, he'd look away quickly, a slight blush coloring his cheeks. Gunwoo didn't like Yoonho. Whenever I mentioned him, Gunwoo would get this tight expression on his face. "Why does that guy keep coming here?" he'd demand. "There are 100 bakeries in this city. It's weird that he comes to yours every single week." "He likes my strawberry cake," I'd explain patiently. "That's all. He's just a good customer." "He likes more than your cake," Gunwoo would mutter darkly. "I see the way he looks at you." I always laughed it off. I was completely devoted to Gunwoo. I thought Yoonho was nice, sure, but I never saw him as anything more than a friendly customer. My heart belonged entirely to the man I came home to every night. That Tuesday, Yoonho seemed more nervous than usual. He fumbled with his wallet and nearly dropped his credit card. "Are you okay?" I asked with concern. "I'm fine," he said quickly. "Just a busy week at work. Your cakes always make everything better, though." I smiled and handed him his perfectly boxed strawberry cake. "I'm glad I can help, even in a small way." He looked like he wanted to say something else. His mouth opened, then closed. Finally, he just nodded and left with his cake, glancing back once through the window before disappearing down the street. I didn't know it then, but had been gathering courage for months to tell me something important, something that would change everything later. But that morning, I was still blissfully unaware of the storm coming my way. The day continued normally. I filled orders, chatted with customers, and cleaned up the shop. Around 2 in the afternoon, I realized I'd forgotten to eat lunch. My stomach rumbled in protest. I looked at the clock and thought about Gunwoo. He'd been working such long hours lately, often not coming home until past midnight. He looked exhausted all the time, with dark circles under his eyes and a permanent frown on his face. I decided to do something nice for him. I'd make his favorite lunch, kimchi fried rice with a fried egg on top and a side of pickled radish, and surprise him at his office. Maybe we could eat together and talk for a bit. We hadn't really talked in weeks. Every time I tried to start a conversation, he'd say he was too tired or too stressed. I packed the lunch carefully in a nice container, added some homemade cookies I'd baked that morning, and even included a handwritten note telling him how proud I was of him for working so hard. I closed my shop early and took the subway across town to his company building.
The elevator ride up to the 15th floor felt longer than usual. I was excited and nervous. Would he be happy to see me? Would he think I was being clingy, like he'd said last week when I asked if we could have dinner together? I pushed those thoughts away. This was a kind gesture. Partners should support each other. There was nothing wrong with bringing your boyfriend lunch. The receptionist at Gunwoo's company looked surprised to see me. We'd met before a few times when I'd visited, but today she seemed uncomfortable. "Hi, I'm here to see Gunwoo," I said cheerfully, holding up the lunch container. "I brought him food." Her eyes darted nervously to the hallway leading to his office. Maybe you should call him first? He might be in a meeting." "It's okay, I'll just leave it on his desk if he's busy," I assured her, already walking past her station. "I know the way." "Wait," she called after me, but I was already halfway down the hall. I reached Gunwoo's office door and noticed it wasn't completely closed. Through the gap, I could hear voices, laughter. I smiled, thinking he was having a good day. I raised my hand to knock. Then I heard Gunwoo's voice, low and intimate. "You're so beautiful. I can't stop thinking about you." My hand froze in midair. My brain tried to make sense of what I was hearing. Maybe he was on the phone. Maybe he was talking about me to someone. But then I heard another voice, a man's voice I didn't recognize, say something that made my blood turn to ice. "Kiss me again. I love when you kiss me like that." My hand, moving on its own, pushed the door open. The scene before me felt like a nightmare. Gunwoo was standing by his desk, his arms wrapped around another man. Their lips were pressed together. The other man's hands were in Gunwoo's hair. They were so absorbed in each other that they didn't even hear the door open. The lunch container slipped from my hands and crashed to the floor. The sound echoed in the suddenly silent office. Gunwoo jumped away from the other man like he'd been burned. His face went pale, then red, then pale again. "Unwoo, this isn't... I can explain." But I couldn't hear him over the rushing sound in my ears. My vision blurred. 5 years. 5 years of my life, of my love, of my trust. 5 years of waking up early to make him breakfast, of waiting up late to make sure he got home safely, of planning our future together. 5 years of believing I'd found my forever person. All of it was a lie. "How long?" I heard myself ask. My voice sounded strange and distant, like it was coming from someone else. "It's not what you think," Gunwoo said, moving toward me with his hands outstretched. I stepped back. "How long, Gunwoo?" The other man grabbed his jacket and practically ran out of the office, not meeting my eyes. Gunwoo watched him go with an expression I'd never seen on his face before, longing mixed with frustration. He'd never looked at me like that. 6 months, Gunwoo finally admitted, running his hands through his hair. But Eunwoo, please understand. 6 months, half a year. All those late nights he said he was working. All those times he came home smelling like cologne I didn't recognize. All those moments when he pulled away from my kisses or said he was too tired to spend time with me. He wasn't tired. He was with someone else. I brought you lunch, I said stupidly, looking at the spilled food on his office floor. Kimchi fried rice was splattered across the tile. The container had cracked. The cookies were crushed. Just like my heart. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, Gunwoo said. But he didn't sound sorry. He sounded annoyed. But honestly, Eunwoo, can you blame me? Look at our life. You're always at that bakery. You smell like flour and sugar all the time. You're always tired. We never go anywhere exciting because you're too busy with your little shop. Each word was a knife. My little shop? The business I'd built from nothing? The dream I'd worked so hard to achieve? I thought you were proud of my shop, I whispered. Proud? Gunwoo laughed, and it was a cruel sound. How can I be proud when my friends' partners are lawyers and doctors and business executives, and mine decorates cakes for children's birthday parties? Do you know how embarrassing it is when people ask what you do? I stared at him like I was seeing him for the first time. Maybe I was. The man I loved, or thought I loved, would never say these things. This stranger wearing Gunwoo's face was someone I didn't know at all. I gave you everything, I said, my voice shaking. I loved you with my whole heart. And that's the problem, Gunwoo exploded. You gave too much. You were always there, always caring, always asking about my day. It was suffocating. Ji-hoon doesn't cling to me like that. He has his own life, his own career. He's successful and sophisticated. He challenges me instead of just agreeing with everything I say. So the other man's name was Ji-hoon. Somehow, knowing his name made it worse. Then why didn't you just break up with me? I asked. Why string me along for 6 months while you were with him? Gunwoo had the decency to look uncomfortable. Because you're convenient. You cook and clean and take care of everything. You make life easy. And I wasn't sure about Ji-hoon yet. I needed a backup plan. A backup plan. That's what 5 years of devotion meant to him. I was his safety net while he explored other options. Something inside me hardened. The tears that had been threatening to fall dried up. I felt cold and clear-headed, like I'd woken up from a long dream. I walked over to where Gunwoo stood and looked up at his face, the face I'd kissed goodnight 1,000 times. I said calmly, "We're done." "Eunwoo, wait!" "No," I interrupted. "We're done. I'm going home to pack your things. I want you out of my apartment by tonight."
"Your apartment?" Gunwoo sputtered. "I live there too." "The lease is in my name. The apartment is above my embarrassing little shop, remember? I'm sure that was always beneath you anyway, so get out." I turned to leave, stepping carefully over the spilled lunch I'd made with so much love. At the door, I paused and looked back one more time. "You're right about one thing," I said. "I did give you everything, my time, my energy, my heart. I built my whole world around you. But that was my mistake, not my weakness. I know my worth now. And Gunwoo, you're going to regret this. Not because I'll do anything to hurt you, but because someday you'll realize what you had and threw away. And by then, I'll be so far beyond you that you won't even recognize me." I walked out of his office with my head high, even though my legs were shaking. I made it to the elevator, made it down to the lobby, made it outside to the street, And then, finally, alone, I let myself fall apart. I don't remember the subway ride home. I don't remember walking back to my apartment. The next thing I knew, I was sitting on my kitchen floor, surrounded by the evidence of our life together. Photos on the refrigerator, his favorite mug in the dish rack, the couple magnet holding my morning note. I ripped down every photo. I threw his mug in the trash. I crumpled up my note and tossed it away. Then I started crying, and I couldn't stop. Big, ugly sobs that shook my whole body. I cried for the time I'd wasted, for the future I'd imagined that would never happen, for the person I'd trusted who betrayed me in the worst possible way. When Gunwoo came home that night to pack his things, I stayed in the bedroom with the door locked. I heard him moving around, heard drawers opening and closing, heard the front door slam when he left, and still I cried. I cried for 3 days straight. I didn't open my shop. I didn't answer phone calls. I just lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering how I'd been so blind. All the signs had been there. The distance, the criticism, the way he made me feel small and worthless. Love shouldn't hurt like this. Love shouldn't make you question your value. But I'd been so desperate to make it work that I'd ignored every red flag. On the 4th morning, someone knocked on my door. I ignored it. They knocked again and again. Finally, I dragged myself out of bed, still wearing the same clothes I'd had on for days, my hair a mess and my eyes swollen from crying. I opened the door, ready to yell at whoever was bothering me. It was Yunho. He stood in my doorway holding a bag of groceries and looking at me with such gentle concern that I almost started crying again. "Your shop has been closed for 3 days," he said quietly. I got worried. "Can I come in?" I should have said no. I should have told him to leave, but I was so tired and so broken that I just stepped aside and let him in. He walked past me into my small apartment, set down the groceries, and then turned to face me. "What happened?" he asked simply. And just like that, everything came pouring out. I told him about finding Gunwoo with Ji-hoon, about the cruel things Gunwoo said about my shop and about me, about feeling worthless and stupid for not seeing it sooner, about the 5 years I'd wasted on someone who saw me as nothing more than a convenient backup plan. Yunho listened to every word. He didn't interrupt. He didn't offer empty platitudes. He just listened with his full attention, his jaw getting tighter, and his hands clenching into fists as I talked. When I finally finished, exhausted from reliving it all, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that changed everything. "Gunwoo is a fool, and he's wrong about everything. You're not clingy or boring or any of the other terrible things he said. You're kind and talented, and you create joy everywhere you go. Your shop isn't embarrassing, it's a gift. Every cake you make brings happiness to someone's life. That's not small, that's beautiful. And anyone who can't see that doesn't deserve you." I started crying again, but this time they were different tears. Someone saw me. Someone understood. For the first time in 3 days, I felt like maybe I wasn't worthless after all. Yunho stayed with me that whole day. He made me eat. He cleaned up my apartment. He didn't try to fix me or rush my healing. He just existed beside me, solid and steady, like an anchor in a storm. And that was the beginning of everything changing.
The days after Yunho's first visit blurred together in a strange mixture of pain and slow healing. He came back the next day with more groceries and a gentle smile, and the day after that, and the day after that. He never asked permission or made a big deal about it. He'd just show up at my door around mid-morning with fresh ingredients and cook simple meals while I sat at my kitchen table, watching him move around my space with careful respect. "You don't have to keep doing this," I told him on the 5th day. "I'm okay, really." Yoonho looked up from the vegetables he was chopping. Are you? Or are you just saying that because you think you should be okay by now? His question hit me hard because he was right. I wasn't okay. I was just pretending because that's what people expected. Society tells us to move on quickly from heartbreak, to be strong, to not let it affect us. But my heart was shattered into a million pieces, and pretending otherwise wasn't helping. I don't know how to feel, I admitted quietly. Part of me is angry. Part of me is sad. Part of me still misses him, even though I hate myself for missing someone who hurt me so badly. Does that make sense? Perfect sense, Yoonho said, setting down his knife and giving me his full attention. Healing isn't linear. You're allowed to feel everything all at once. You're allowed to miss what you thought you had, even while being angry about the reality. You're allowed to take as much time as you need. Something about his words released a pressure I didn't know I was holding. I started crying again. I'd been doing that a lot lately. But Yoonho didn't look uncomfortable or try to make me stop. He just handed me a tissue and waited until I was ready to talk again. Tell me about your shop, he said eventually. How did you start baking? I wiped my eyes and thought back to happier times. My grandmother taught me. She was a baker too, back in her village. When I was little, I'd spend summers with her, and we'd wake up before dawn to make bread for the whole neighborhood. She used to say that baking was like giving hugs to people you've never met. Every cake, every cookie, every loaf of bread carried love from her hands to someone else's home. Yoonho smiled. She sounds wonderful. She was, I said, feeling warmth spread through my chest for the first time in days. When she passed away, she left me her recipes and enough money to start my own shop. Sweet Moments Bakery was her dream for me. And Gunwoo, my voice faltered. Gunwoo knew all of this. He knew how much my shop meant to me. He used to say he was proud of me for following my grandmother's legacy, but I guess that was a lie too.
It wasn't a lie, Yoonho said firmly. He probably was proud in the beginning, but some people change when they feel insecure. They tear down the people closest to them to feel better about themselves. That's his weakness, not yours. I'd never thought about it that way. Was Gunwoo insecure? He always seemed so confident, so sure of himself. But maybe that confidence was a mask. Maybe he needed to make me feel small because he felt small inside. That realization didn't make the hurt go away, but it did make it feel less personal somehow. When do you think you'll reopen your shop? Yoonho asked gently. Your customers miss you. I miss my weekly strawberry cake. I managed a small laugh. Why do you always buy a whole cake every week? That's so much cake for one person. Yoonho's ears turned red. I share it with my office staff. They all love it. That's kind of you, I said. Then, gathering courage, I asked something I'd always wondered. Why do you keep coming to my shop specifically? You're obviously successful. You could go to any fancy bakery in the city. Yoonho was quiet for a long moment, his hands stilling over the vegetables. When he spoke, his voice was soft and careful. Do you really want to know? Yes, I said, my heart beating faster for some reason. He took a deep breath. I first came to your shop 2 years ago. I'd just finished a difficult business deal and was exhausted and questioning whether all the money and success was worth the stress. I was walking past your shop and saw you through the window, laughing with a customer while decorating a birthday cake. You looked so genuinely happy, so content with what you were doing. It made me stop and wonder when I'd last felt that kind of simple joy. I listened, captivated by the honesty in his voice. So I came in and ordered a cake. And when you handed it to me, you said, I hope this brings sweetness to your day. Such a simple thing to say, but it meant everything to me in that moment. The cake was delicious, but more than that, your kindness fed something hungry in my soul. So I came back the next week, and the next, and every week after that. Just for cake? I asked softly. Yoonho met my eyes. No, not just for cake. For you. To see your smile, to hear your voice, to have 30 seconds of your attention where I could pretend I was someone important to you instead of just another customer. My breath caught. Yunho. I'm not telling you this to pressure you or make things complicated. I know you're healing from Gunwoo. I know this is terrible timing. I've been carrying these feelings for 2 years, and I'm tired of hiding them. You deserve to know that someone sees your worth, that someone thinks you're extraordinary exactly as you are.
I didn't know what to say. My mind was reeling. Yunho had feelings for me for 2 years while I was with Gunwoo, completely oblivious? Gunwoo was right, I whispered. He said you liked more than my cakes. Yunho smiled sadly. He was right about that, but he was wrong about everything else. And I never would have acted on my feelings while you were with him. I would have kept coming to your shop and buying strawberry cakes and treasuring those 30 seconds forever if it meant you were happy. Tears filled my eyes again, but this time they weren't sad tears. They were overwhelmed tears, grateful tears. How could two men be so completely different? Gunwoo had my love and threw it away carelessly. Yunho had quietly cherished me from afar, asking for nothing in return. I can't, I started, then stopped. I'm not ready for anything right now. I'm still so broken. I know, Yunho said gently. I'm not asking you for anything. I just wanted you to know that you are loved, that you are valued, that Gunwoo's opinion of you says everything about his character and nothing about yours. Take all the time you need to heal. I'll be here, whether as a friend or something more, or just as the guy who buys strawberry cakes. Whatever you need. And he meant it. Over the following weeks and months, Yunho proved his words with consistent action. He helped me reopen my shop, not by throwing money at it, but by rolling up his sleeves and helping me clean and restock. He spread the word to his business contacts, bringing me new corporate clients for office parties and events. He celebrated my small victories, a successful new recipe, a glowing customer review, a profitable week. But he never pushed for more than I was ready to give. Slowly, carefully, I started putting myself back together. I threw myself into my baking with renewed passion. I experimented with new flavors and techniques. I started a social media account for my shop and posted photos of my creations. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected during my relationship with Gunwoo. And somewhere along the way, I realized I was happy again. Not the dependent happiness I'd had with Gunwoo, where my mood relied on his attention and approval, but a deep, solid happiness that came from within. I liked who I was. I was proud of what I'd built. I didn't need someone else to complete me. But I wanted Yunho in my life anyway. It wasn't a dramatic realization. There was no lightning bolt moment. It was a gradual awareness that crept up on me over months. I noticed I looked forward to his visits. I caught myself thinking about him during the day and wanting to share funny stories with him. I started dressing a bit nicer on the days I knew he'd come by the shop. When other customers flirted with me, I politely declined because I found myself comparing everyone to Yunho, and they all fell short. 6 months after my breakup with Gunwoo, I finally admitted to myself that I'd fallen in love. Real love this time. The kind that didn't make me feel small or anxious. The kind that made me feel brave and valued and seen. Yunho came to my shop on a beautiful spring Saturday to pick up his weekly cake. I'd made his strawberry cake extra special that day, decorating it with delicate sugar flowers and his name written in chocolate. "What's the occasion?" he asked, surprised by the extra decoration. "Can I talk to you after I close up?" I asked, my heart pounding. "Maybe we could go for a walk in the park." "Of course," he said, his eyes warm. "I'll wait."
2 hours later, we walked through the park near my shop. Cherry blossom petals drifted through the air like pink snow. Children played on the playground while couples walked hand in hand. The spring air smelled fresh and full of new beginnings. "I've been thinking a lot," I started, nervous but determined, "about everything that happened with Gunwoo, about healing and growth and what I want in life." Yunho walked beside me quietly, giving me space to find my words. I realized something important. Gunwoo made me believe that love meant making myself smaller so he could feel bigger, that being loved meant changing who I was to become someone worthy of affection. But that's not love at all. "No," Yunho agreed softly. "It's not." "Real love," I paused, gathering courage. "Real love is what you've shown me these past 6 months. Showing up without being asked, supporting without expecting anything in return, seeing someone's worth even when they can't see it themselves. You've loved me patiently while I healed. You've celebrated my joy and sat with my pain. You've never once made me feel like I needed to be anyone other than exactly who I am." Yunho stopped walking and turned to face me, his expression hopeful but cautious. I took a deep breath. "I'm in love with you, Yunho, and I'm finally healed enough to say it clearly and confidently. I don't need you to complete me or fix me or save me. I'm whole on my own, but I want to share my wholeness with you, if you'll have me." For a moment, Yunho just stared at me with glistening eyes. Then he smiled, a beautiful, genuine smile that lit up his entire face. "I've waited 2 years to hear you say that. I'd wait 20 more if I needed to. Yes, Yunho. Yes to everything." He took my hands in his, and the touch felt electric and right. "Can I kiss you?" he asked softly. "Please," I whispered. Our first kiss was gentle and sweet, tasting of new beginnings and healed hearts. Cherry blossoms fell around us like confetti celebrating this moment. When we pulled apart, I was crying happy tears, and Yunho was laughing, and everything felt perfect. "Be my boyfriend?" I asked, even though I already knew his answer. "I thought you'd never ask," Yunho said, pulling me close. "I'm yours, Yunho, for as long as you'll have me." As we walked back through the park hand in hand, I thought about how far I'd come. 6 months ago, I was broken and hurting, believing I'd never love again. Now I was standing in the sunshine with a man who saw my worth and celebrated it daily. I'd learned that healing was possible, that self-love mattered more than being loved by the wrong person, that the right person would love you not despite your flaws, but because your imperfections made you beautifully human. Gunwoo had broken my heart, but in doing so, he'd freed me to find something better. And for that, I was almost grateful. Almost.
1 year later, Yunho proposed to me on the anniversary of our first kiss in the park. He'd recreated the entire scene, cherry blossoms, spring air, even the same bench where we'd sat and talked for hours that day. When he got down on one knee and pulled out a ring, I didn't even let him finish his speech before shouting, "Yes!" and pulling him up to kiss him. We decided on a spring wedding, keeping it simple and intimate with our closest friends and family. My shop would cater the desserts, of course. We'd hold the ceremony in a beautiful garden venue with flowers everywhere and natural sunlight streaming through the windows. Everything was falling into place perfectly. Then, one evening, while addressing wedding invitations at my kitchen table, I had an idea. Yunho was sitting across from me, carefully writing names in his neat handwriting. I watched him for a moment, this wonderful man who'd shown me what real partnership looked like, and then I said something that made him look up in surprise. "I want to invite Gunwoo to our wedding." Yunho's pen stopped mid-word. "What? Why would you want him there?" I thought about how to explain it. "Because I want closure. Real closure. I want him to see that I didn't just survive losing him, I thrived. I want him to see me happy and loved by someone who actually values me. I want him to witness the life I built without him. Is that petty? Yoonho considered this carefully. It's not petty, it's human. You want him to see what he lost. I understand that. But are you sure? What if he causes a scene? He won't, I said confidently, because that would require him admitting he still cares. His pride won't let him do that. He'll come, if he comes at all, trying to prove he's over it. But I know him. I know it'll destroy him inside to watch me marry you. A slow smile spread across Yoonho's face. You know what? Do it. Invite him. Let him see exactly what he gave up. And let him see that I'm not just someone he should have feared. I'm someone who's proven myself worthy of your love. So I wrote out an invitation in my best handwriting and mailed it to Gunwoo's new address. I didn't include a personal note, just the formal invitation with both our names on it, asking us to celebrate our union. I didn't know if he'd come. Part of me thought he'd throw the invitation away and pretend he never got it. But I underestimated how much Gunwoo's curiosity and ego would get the better of him. 2 weeks before the wedding, I got a response card in the mail. Gunwoo had checked "will attend" in his distinctive handwriting. My heart jumped when I saw it, not with fear or anxiety, with satisfaction. He was coming. He was going to witness everything. The week before the wedding, my shop was busier than ever. I was making our wedding cake, a towering masterpiece of vanilla and strawberry layers, with fresh flowers cascading down the sides. I'd also prepared 200 cupcakes in various flavors, cookies shaped like hearts, and a chocolate fountain for the reception. Yoonho kept trying to convince me to let someone else handle the desserts. You should be relaxing and getting ready, not working yourself to exhaustion, he worried. But I insisted. This is my gift to us. Every layer of this cake, every cupcake, every cookie, they're all made with love. Our guests will taste the happiness I'm feeling. That's important to me. He kissed my flour-dusted forehead. You're amazing, you know that? You tell me every day, I teased, but I never get tired of hearing it. The night before the wedding, I barely slept. Not because I was nervous about marrying Yoonho. I'd never been more certain of anything in my life, but because I kept thinking about Gunwoo sitting in that audience tomorrow, watching me commit my life to someone else, someone better, someone who deserved me. I wondered what he'd been doing this past year. I'd heard through mutual friends that his relationship with Ji-hoon had fallen apart after just 3 months. Apparently, Ji-hoon got bored and moved on to someone else, doing to Gunwoo exactly what Gunwoo had done to me. The universe's sense of irony was impeccable. I also heard that Gunwoo had lost his job for poor performance and unprofessional behavior. He'd moved into a small studio apartment across town. His social media, which used to be full of photos showing off his supposedly perfect life, had gone quiet. The few posts he did make looked sad and lonely. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt nothing. He was a chapter of my life that had closed. Whatever happened to him now wasn't my concern. The morning of my wedding, I woke up to sunshine streaming through my window and my phone buzzing with excited messages from friends and family. My shop assistants arrived early to transport all the desserts to the venue. My best friend helped me get dressed in my white suit, fussing over every detail until I looked perfect. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I barely recognized the man staring back. A year ago, I'd been broken and questioning my worth. Now I stood tall and confident, glowing with happiness and self-assurance. Gunwoo's cruel words had once made me doubt everything about myself, but I'd proven him wrong. I wasn't boring or embarrassing or unworthy of love. I was extraordinary, and finally I believed it. The venue looked like something from a fairy tale. White flowers and twinkling lights were everywhere. Our guests were arriving, dressed in their finest clothes. The string quartet we'd hired was playing soft, romantic music. Everything was perfect. And there, in the very back row, trying to be invisible but failing, sat Gunwoo. I spotted him immediately as I peeked through the doorway before the ceremony started. He looked terrible. His suit was wrinkled and ill-fitting, his hair was messy, his face was gaunt with dark circles under his eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. He sat alone, hunched over like he was trying to fold into himself. For just a second, I felt a flicker of pity. Then I remembered his words in that office a year ago. "You'll never find anyone better than me. You'll be alone forever." I remembered how he'd made me feel worthless and small. I remembered the 6 months of lies and betrayal. The pity evaporated. The ceremony began. I walked down the aisle toward Yunho, who stood at the altar looking at me like I was the most precious thing in the world. His eyes were shining with unshed tears. His smile was brilliant. When I reached him and took his hands, the love radiating from him was so powerful that everyone in the room could feel it. The officiant began speaking, but I barely heard the words. I was too focused on Yunho's face, on the way he looked at me like I hung the moon and stars. This was what love looked like. This was what I deserved. This was what I'd been searching for all along. When it came time for vows, Yunho went first. His voice was steady and clear, carrying through the garden so everyone could hear. "Yunho," he began. "2 years ago, I walked into a small bakery and met someone who changed my life forever. You were laughing with a customer, completely in your element, radiating joy and kindness. In that moment, I knew I was seeing something rare and precious, a person who'd found their purpose and was sharing it with the world, through every cake, every cookie, every smile." I could see people in the audience pulling out tissues. "I fell in love with you that day," Yunho continued, "with your passion, your creativity, your generous heart. I fell in love with the way you see beauty in small moments, the way you make everyone feel special, the way you pour love into everything you create. For 2 years, I loved you from afar, content with 30 seconds of your time each week, because that was all I thought I could have." Tears were streaming down my face now, but I didn't care. "Then, life gave me an unexpected gift," Yunho said, his voice thick with emotion. "It gave me the chance to know you, really know you, during your darkest time. And what I discovered was that you're even more incredible than I had imagined. You're resilient, you're brave, you know your worth, and you refuse to settle for less than you deserve. You turned your pain into strength and your heartbreak into wisdom." He squeezed my hands tighter. "Today, I make these promises to you. I will never make you feel small. I will celebrate your successes as loudly as you celebrate mine. I will support your dreams and help you achieve them. I will love you on your good days and your difficult days. I will choose you every single day for the rest of my life. You are my partner, my best friend, my home, and I will spend forever showing you that you made the right choice in choosing me." By the time he finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the garden. Even the officiant was wiping tears away. Then it was my turn. I took a shaky breath and began. "Yunho, a year ago I was lost. Someone I trusted had shattered my heart and made me question everything I thought I knew about love and about myself. I felt broken beyond repair. I thought I'd never be whole again." I glanced briefly at the back row where Gunwoo sat. His face was pale and his jaw was clenched tight. "But then you showed up at my door with groceries and kindness," I continued, focusing back on Yunho. "You didn't try to fix me or rush my healing. You just existed beside me, patient and steady, reminding me every day that I had value, that I was worthy of respect and care, that my dreams and passions mattered." Yunho's tears were falling freely now, matching mine. You taught me that love isn't about making yourself smaller for someone else, I said. It's about two whole people choosing to share their lives together. It's not about need, it's about want. I don't need you to complete me, because I'm already complete. But I want you in my life, because you make everything brighter and better and more beautiful. I took a deep breath for my final vow. Today, I promise to love you with the same patience and consistency you've shown me. I promise to be your safe place when the world feels hard. I promise to celebrate your victories and support you through your struggles. I promise to grow with you, laugh with you, and build a life with you that honors both of our dreams. You saved me by showing me how to save myself. And now, I choose to spend forever by your side, not because I have to, but because there's nowhere else I'd rather be. When I finished, Yoonho pulled me close and whispered, "I love you so much." "I love you too," I whispered back. The officiant, still dabbing at her eyes, declared us married. We kissed, as our friends and family erupted in applause and cheers. In that perfect moment, nothing else existed except us and this overwhelming joy. The reception was magical. We'd set up tables under strings of lights, with our wedding cake as the centerpiece. The chocolate fountain flowed while guests helped themselves to cupcakes and cookies. Music played as people danced and celebrated with us. Yuno and I had our first dance as husbands, swaying together while everyone watched with happy smiles. I'd almost forgotten about Gunwoo until I saw him trying to approach during a quiet moment. Yoonho noticed at the same time I did and smoothly stepped between us, his body language protective but not aggressive. "Congratulations," Gunwoo said stiffly. His voice sounded rough, like he'd been crying. "The ceremony was nice." "Thank you," Yoonho replied coolly. "It's kind of you to come." Gunwoo's eyes slid past Yunho to me. "Eunwoo, can we talk? Just for a minute?" Before I could respond, Yunho spoke firmly but politely. "Today is about celebrating our marriage. If you want to congratulate us, you can do it from there. Eunwoo doesn't owe him his time or attention." Something flickered across Gunwoo's face. Hurt, anger, shame, all mixed together. He looked at me desperately. "I just want to say I'm sorry for everything. I was wrong about everything. You weren't boring or clingy or any of those things I said. I was stupid and scared, and I threw away the best thing in my life." The old Eunwoo, the one who'd loved Gunwoo unconditionally, might have softened at those words, might have offered forgiveness and comfort, but I wasn't that person anymore. "I appreciate you saying that," I said calmly, moving to stand beside Yunho and taking his hand. "And I forgive you, Gunwoo, not because you deserve it, but because carrying anger only hurts me. You taught me valuable lessons about what I don't want in a relationship. In a strange way, you helped me recognize real love when it came along." I gestured to Yunho, who squeezed my hand supportively. "So thank you for that, and I genuinely hope you find happiness someday. But that happiness won't include me in any capacity. We're done, Gunwoo. We have been for a long time. This wedding isn't about you or our past. It's about my future with Yunho, and that future is bright and beautiful and completely separate from you." Gunwoo's face crumpled. "I miss you," he whispered. "Every day I miss you. I see you on social media looking so happy with your shop and your life, and I realize what an idiot I was. Ji-hoon left me just like I left you. I lost my job, I lost my friends, I lost everything, and it's all my fault." Yes, I agreed simply. It is. Those were consequences of your choices, and they're not my responsibility to fix. Can't we at least be friends? Gunwoo asked desperately. I just want to be part of your life somehow. I looked at this man who'd once been everything to me and felt nothing. No love, no hate, no desire to hurt or help him, just indifference. No, I said gently but firmly, we can't be friends. You made your choices and I've made mine. I'm choosing to move forward with my husband and leave the past where it belongs. I hope you find peace and healing, Gunwoo, but you need to find it without me. Goodbye. Yunho wrapped his arm around my waist, a clear signal that this conversation was over. Gunwoo stood there for another moment, looking lost and broken. Then he turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd of guests.
I watched him go and felt a weight lift from my shoulders. That chapter was finally completely closed. Are you okay? Yunho asked softly, scanning my face with concern. I turned to look at my husband, my wonderful, patient, loving husband, and smiled. I'm perfect. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, with exactly who I'm supposed to be with. We rejoined the reception, dancing and laughing with our friends and family. I cut into our beautiful wedding cake and fed Yunho a bite, giggling when frosting got on his nose. We toasted with champagne and posed for photos and soaked in every moment of our special day. Later, when most of the guests had left and we were sitting together under the lights, Yunho pulled me close and kissed my forehead. "Thank you," he said softly. "For what?" I asked, confused. "For healing, for being brave enough to love again, for choosing me." I kissed him properly. "Thank you for waiting, for seeing my worth when I couldn't see it myself, for showing me what real love looks like." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the last of the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. "You know what the best revenge is?" I mused out loud. "What's that?" "Living well, being happy, succeeding, loving and being loved." Gunwoo tried to make me believe I was worthless without him. The best way to prove him wrong wasn't to hurt him back. It was to build an amazing life without him, a life so good that his absence became meaningless. Yunho smiled and pulled me closer. "You're incredibly wise, you know that?" "I learned from the best," I said, resting my head on his shoulder. As the stars came out above us and our wedding reception wound down, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The pain of betrayal had nearly destroyed me, but it had also forced me to find strength I didn't know I had. It taught me to value myself. It cleared the path for real love to enter my life. Gunwoo thought he was punishing me by leaving. Instead, he'd freed me to find something infinitely better. The revenge I'd gotten wasn't planned or malicious. It was simply the natural result of refusing to let his cruelty define me. He'd predicted I'd be alone and miserable without him. Instead, I was married to an incredible man, running a successful business, surrounded by people who loved and respected me, and happier than I'd ever been. That was the sweetest revenge of all. 2 years after our wedding, Yunho and I opened a second location of Sweet Moments Bakery in a trendy part of the city. The grand opening was featured in several food magazines. My grandmother's recipes, once shared only with our small neighborhood, were now bringing joy to hundreds of people across the city. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Gunwoo saw one of the articles and finally understood what he'd thrown away. Not just me, but the opportunity to be part of something beautiful and growing. He'd wanted someone successful and impressive, but he'd failed to recognize that I was building success in my own way, on my own terms. I don't think about Gunwoo much anymore. Sometimes weeks go by without him crossing my mind at all. When I do remember our time together,
It feels like a story that happened to someone else. That heartbroken baker crying on his kitchen floor seems like a different person entirely. Because I am different. I'm stronger. I'm wiser. I know my worth now, and I refuse to settle for anything less than mutual respect, genuine love, and true partnership. And I found all of that with Yunho, who still comes to my shop every week, not as a customer anymore, but as my husband, and still tells me my cakes taste like they're made with love. Because they are. Everything I create is made with love now. Love for my craft, love for my customers, love for the life I've built, and love for the man who saw my potential even when I couldn't see it myself. That's my story. From heartbreak to healing to happiness. From betrayal to strength to the sweetest revenge. A life well lived. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you've ever been through heartbreak, I hope my journey shows you that healing is possible, that you can survive betrayal and come out stronger on the other side, that the right person will love you exactly as you are, without asking you to become smaller or different. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Share your own experiences in the comments below. I read every single one, and your stories matter. Whether you're currently healing from heartbreak or celebrating new love, know that you're not alone. And remember, the best revenge against someone who hurt you isn't hurting them back. It's healing yourself, building a beautiful life, and proving that you never needed them to be happy. That's true freedom. Until next time, choose yourself first, know your worth, and never settle for less than you deserve. You are worthy of real love. Don't ever forget that. See you in the next story.